to come on. I figured it'd be a great opportunity to just talk a little bit of Reds before the series with the O's. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring on Jeff. What's going on, Jeff?
Yeah.
How's it going, guys?
What's up,
Great
Jeff?
to be with you. Looking forward to a fine weekend series between our two ball clubs.
Are you one that's going to be going to the yard quite a bit, or you like to stay, or you're going to be there?
They're going to be, so they're giving away this cool Mandalorian t-shirt on Saturday. It's got the Mandalorian helmet and it's got the Reds like City Connect C on it. Very much into that. Going to be there on Saturday for sure.
Are you into the City Connects for the Reds before we kind of dive into this? Because I'll tell you what, people in Baltimore are not in on the jerseys, but not for the reason you might think. It's because the Orioles just suck when they play in the City Connects. Like,
the jerseys are great, but the record is not
terrible. So I want your opinion. Are you a fan of the Red City Connect, and do you think that they should stay long term, however you might view it?
I am. I love the logo. I've got a hat that I love wearing the hat. I can't quite afford the jersey itself, but the jersey is very cool looking. And quite frankly, they made this jersey and really released it at the same time that they called up Matt McLain, Ellie De La Cruz. So there's like a little bit of a connection there where you guys say that the Orioles record isn't that great in their City Connect. Like, our City Connect is synonymous with the 2023 season. So it's always going to have a special place in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The other part too, Felix Bautista got hurt in the City Connect. So that's why everyone's like, no one's going to say it out loud. Well, I will. If MLB would allow the Orioles to
burn,
possibly not burn, possibly lose the jerseys, because we're not going to go that graphic there, Zach.
I would burn them.
Okay,
wow.
Well, there it is. That's anyway. So talk to us a little bit. We got a little bit of the lowdown with Cincy. First off, I really do like the stadium with Cincy. Energy up there seems to be back, despite I know that they're going through a lot of issues with the team and injuries and kind of up and down. But as we've talked about earlier, if you are going to have a chance to win any series, you got to have good pitching to start. And right now, they have three good starters. It's supposed to be Green, Abbott, and Lodolo is going to match up. Maybe give a little bit of breakdown, because we talked about Lodolo right before you came on. Like, these are some really, really talented arms that the Reds have. And I actually personally think it's going to be a challenge for the Orioles, who are the best offensive team in the American League.
Yeah, the sky has always been the limit for this potential when it comes to the Cincinnati Reds rotation. That last year it was rough. They had a lot of injuries. There were, guys like Luis Sessa and Connor Overton that were getting multiple starts, Luke Weaver, and guys like that really made that look bad. But the good guys, the core players that are going to be here for years, were really starting to figure it out. And Hunter Green's last start, the fastball command was on point. And it's interesting because the consensus around him is that everybody in Redsdom that watches him is like, he needs a third pitch, got to get the third pitch going. Where's the third pitch? How many times did he throw the third pitch and things like that? He threw his fastball 72% of the time in his last start, and that really kind of like ticked some people off. But what he did was he put it exactly where he wanted it. It was a dot wherever he put it in the zone. And if you can do that, all of your other stuff sort of falls into place, and that's why he dominated the Rangers the way that he did. I'm looking for more of that in this in Friday night's game. And Andrew Abbott really is coming off of a couple of starts where he's not had his best stuff. He's worked around a lot of base runners. He's worked around a lot of different, not necessarily struggles. I mean, he had one start where he didn't give up any earned runs, but not one single inning did he go in order. It was, I want to say he had like 85 pitches through 4 innings, and that was kind of like, he doesn't really have his best stuff, because he is efficient when he is at his best. If he is going 3-2 on most guys, that's when you know that you're going to get into the Reds bullpen pretty early on. But I think overall it's really going to set them up well for this series. Plus, I know that, you guys' past guest with Trace, you were talking a lot about the injuries and stuff. They should be getting Tyler Stevenson and Christian Encarnacion Strand back for this series. They've been without them. They've been on the bench, but not on the IL. The whole weird thing of like they're counting against the 26 man, but they're not available for the entire San Diego series. But all reports are they're going to be back in the lineup on Friday. So I'm looking forward to a very good series this weekend, especially when it starts with the guys that are on the mound.
Yeah, and I mean, for Hunter Green, by the way, and I love that you said, oh, people are worrying about him throwing his fastball. If you have an elite fastball, that's a freaking weapon. And that's what actually with Grayson Rodriguez, because, my background, Jeff, I played minor leaguer professionally for 8 years. A lot of these Orioles guys, coincidentally, are guys that were my former teammates, so I've watched them very closely. Grayson Rodriguez, I'd put similarly with Hunter Green in the sense, electric fastball, that sets up everything else. And if you can locate that, that can honestly be your best pitch. Now, Grayson has some good secondary pitches, so does Green. But when you throw that damn hard, that is something. Look what Mason Miller right now out of the pen for the A's. I mentioned him earlier, and Batista did it last year. Hey, 103, I'm going to throw it right down the middle. Try to hit it. Mm-hmm. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Gunnar Henderson, he mowed them all down. Velo plays, but you have to, and some of those guys that aren't throwing 103, Green's only throwing 98, 99, or whatever it may be. Right. But you got to locate more and you can have success. But Zach, I think you have the next question.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for coming on the show. But so you talked a little bit about getting to the Reds bullpen. I was just looking at Alexis Diaz's stats. He obviously is not having as dominant of a year to start as he kind of was last year. Can you kind of give us a quick breakdown of the Reds bullpen? Are there guys that Oriole fans should hope that they avoid deep in the games because they've kind of been shut down this year? Or how has the Reds bullpen been?
Well, it's funny because yesterday I definitely would have said Fernando Cruz, and then he gave up, a grand slam to the Padres, and he loaded the bases before that. So he had a really bad inning. But up until that point, he has been absolutely shut down. He has a splitter that, up until that game, was getting like swings and misses on 75% of the time he threw it. Mm-hmm. And my basic math says if you get 75% and you throw it 4 times, well, then you're going to strike somebody out. So he has been so phenomenal to begin this season. And I still trust him even after that little bit of a blow up, because when you're a relief pitcher, you get one outing that looks bad and it makes your entire ERA look horrible. And then people think that you're not good. Mm-hmm. And that's just not the case. And it's another case with a guy, Lucas Sims, on this roster that I feel really confident in whenever the Reds call on him to come out of the bullpen. And I think that, he's had a couple of rough outings too that have really buoyed his ERA. And a lot of folks are like, yeah, we don't want to see him anymore. But he's got a fastball splitter that he's been working on and a breaking ball that's just devastating whenever he's got his command on. So I think those two guys to get to Alexis Diaz. And Diaz has definitely been up and down to begin the season. Mm-hmm. Last year, up until June, I want to say he gave up like 2 runs in the first 2 months of the season. And so everybody thought that's who he was. But he went through some struggles. He pitched a lot last year. In fact, most of the Reds bullpen, I would deem as overworked because of how the starting pitching just did not help them or do them any favors whatsoever last year. But this year they're kind of getting regular rest, and there's not a whole lot of, he pitched 4 times last week when you're talking about a given pitcher. Diaz is kind of getting used to that. And I've seen it where in his last outing, he had super command for the first 2 batters, and then it was walk, single, walk, single for a run, and you're just like, man, is he okay? And I think he's just trying to get into the groove. So I still think that he is that guy. He just hasn't quite shown it that.
We're good right now. Sorry, I actually accidentally muted myself. I was trying to fix some things behind here for a moment. But it's really interesting. The game that I think people are understanding more and more in baseball, the bullpen for every team is this important role that the manager has to do a great job of, that you're trying to mix and match matchups. Sometimes it's going to work in your favor, but really that's where you can win or lose a game. And for the Orioles this past series, bullpen was sensational that they had. And for the Yankees, to be honest, their bullpen is disgusting. Get Clay Holmes out of Baltimore, to say the least. Holy shirts and pants. But Brad, I think you're muted for a second though, Brad, but I think just also you wanted to touch on, you kind of mentioned a little bit about division. And I think we want to dive a little bit deeper into that with you, Jeff, for this next question.
Yeah, Jeff. So, the division actually looks really tight in DNL Central, and the Brewers were sneaky good. I don't know if anybody even realized they were going to win 90-plus games last year, but, we're getting into May. It's still a tight race with the Reds being back only 2.5. and a run differential that isn't all that bad either. In fact, it's better than the Cubs are. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on the Reds? You know, we had Trace on, and I don't know how much of it you call it, but it kind of seemed as if maybe he felt a little bit bleaker than most as far as the Reds are concerned. But it's still early, right? I mean, I think that there's still a really good chance that the Reds could either win this division or get really damn close.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment there, Brad, because this division is going to be the Cubs and the Reds fighting it for the rest of the year. I don't buy the Brewers. Last year I did. Last year they had the pitching to get there. This year they don't. There's no Woodruff. There's no Burns. You guys got Burns, so congrats. Thank you for taking him out of the division, by the way.
You're welcome.
Really glad.
But the Brewers actually DL Hall's out, and Joey Ortiz has done some good things.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
but you're welcome. That's what we're hoping to do. People helping people. But continue on, Jeff.
Exactly. And I don't really buy. I think they're going to fade a little bit, and they're still in that mode where do they rebuild? Do they retool? You know, rebuild kind of feels like a four-letter word for a lot of teams, but do they reset a little bit with the young guys that they've got coming up, and Churio, who's already there, and they've got a lot of other guys on their way. So I really think that it's Reds, Cubs, then you have Brewers, Cardinals, and the Pirates are just somewhere in this. I don't really know what to make of them. They've got a lot of talent, but right now they can't hit. And that's really where the bulk of their talent is. So I don't know why they're not hitting and why they're pitching pretty good. I'd be interested to see how they move, and whenever Paul Skeens gets to the major leagues, I don't know why he's not here yet, the way that he's pitching in AAA. But
oh gosh,
he's killing it. I'm a little worried about him coming up for the first Reds series, and then there's some sort of weird magic voodoo stuff that they get out of that. Anyway, when it comes to this division, though, I think it's Reds, Cubs. The Reds just have to get through. So the Orioles are really the third team in this gauntlet of a schedule that they've got for the next 3 weeks, where it's just playoff team after playoff team after team barely just missed the playoffs last year. And then they've got a 12-game West Coast road trip pancaked in between, no off days whatsoever. And you're like, man, what are they going to look like after this? Just give me 500. If they come out of this, if it's Memorial Day and we're welcoming the Cardinals in and we're 500 at that point, they're cooking with gas. I feel good about them. I'm not worried about the schedule and the losing 3 of 4, because this team, as currently constructed, waiting on the injuries to come back that they are, is a 500 ball club.
I love that assessment, because I tell people this, and what we were just talking about earlier about the first month of the season, you want to feel like your team's in the race. White Sox not in the race. Marlins not in the race. The Rockies well out of the race, and they've had other issues going on here. That's a different story. But you want to just be in it. And I'm with you on that. Memorial Day, stay in it. You're around 500. Teams can go on runs, and that will be very interesting. And honestly, that's a kind of an underrated quality to kind of how to look at that. Underrated in the sense, weather the storm, whatever team can weather the storm, the tough part of their schedule, can hopefully open up for more opportunities as the summer heats up and your team can maybe get healthier and get hotter. But since I use the word underrated, Kevin, you want to talk a little bit about some guys that maybe are underrated for this upcoming series?
I do, Jeff. Good to see you. I love the background going on, but my favorite thing, and I bother Ross about this all the time, is the StreamYard duck in your bag.
It's a joke at this point to put it back there.
Literally, my favorite. I need to find a way to get myself one of those, but it's hilarious.
Wait a minute. There's a duck.
Yeah, look at it. Look at his back.
Oh, hey now, it's literally a duck
there.
Look at how cool that is. So
hell yeah,
I need to find a way to get one of those. But regardless, Jeff, when you're talking about this series, for maybe people who aren't as familiar with the Reds and who's on their team, you've mentioned a bunch of names throughout this, but are there any underrated, maybe 1 or 2 Reds that Orioles fans should keep their eye on? And then for you, are there any Orioles players? They can be stars, they can be underrated guys that you're looking forward to seeing play the Reds, or that you have your eye on?
Got to start first on the Reds side with Will Benson. Last year, he had a huge struggle. What was like 0 for 4 or 1 for 41 or something like that. Got sent down to AAA, was called back up in the middle of May, never let go. Hit like 350 the rest of the way from that point on. And it was clear that he was going to be a big part of this team moving forward. He has once again kind of started slow, although we've seen some power, seen a little bit better than what we saw it's better than 1 for 41 out of him to begin this season. And I really think he's going to get going here soon. I kind of have him tabbed as a guy to keep an eye on in this series. We've seen a lot of great defense from him. His biggest question was, can he hit both righties and lefties? And that's still a work in progress because he was a platoon guy last year where if a lefty hit the bullpen, David Bell was bringing somebody off the bench to hit for him. So this is a thing that they've really let him try a little bit more as the season has gone along, and there's been mixed results, but I think that will come along, and they've been batting him leadoff here recently, and he has got a very great eye at the plate. You're going to see him strike out looking a couple of times because it's just going to be a perfect pitch that you probably get a good frame on or something like that, and the umpire behind the plate calls it a strike, and Will Benson's going to look back and he's like, it wasn't a strike, but I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to go to the dugout now. I really am looking forward to see what Will Benson has in this series. And then from maybe a standpoint of, I think people are starting to sleep on him around Cincinnati, is Tyler Stevenson. Like, having not seen him for the last couple of games, which has been a bit of a pain point for me on the podcast here recently, because why are we just, forcing the issue, keeping him on the bench and making us shorthanded on the West Coast? I digress on that. Tyler Stevenson is going to have a good weekend because he has been hitting the ball super hard. I think when it comes to the barrels statistic over at Baseball Savant, and I don't know what you guys think about analytics. I try to marry it with the eye test. I'm not an all analytics or all eye test kind of guy, but his barrels are like tops. He's like one of the top 5 hitters in the majors when it comes to getting them barrels and hitting the ball hard. He just hasn't had the results. His BABIP has been super low, and I think that they're starting to find the gaps. His line drives are finally starting to find some grass, and he's finally getting those hits, but he's been hitting the ball well all season, so he's just been getting unlucky. I think that's going to continue in the series, and defensively, he has improved. Like last year, he was one of the worst framers in the league. He's gotten a lot better at that this year, so I look for that to continue. And then on the Orioles side, I'm looking at this guy because I got him in my fantasy league. I'm excited about Colton Cowser and seeing what he's going to be doing in this series. Like, picked him up early on this year, and man, I've been reaping the benefits of that because he's been looking good.
Very damn good. He is on a tear, to say the least. Except he's in a little bit of a quote unquote slump. 1 for 12 or something like that.
1 for 12 in the Yankees series, but other than that, he's been tearing the cover off the ball.
Yeah, so the Orioles will get rid of him soon for 1 for 12.
Yeah, cash considerations.
Yeah,
get him off the team.
Gotta love it. Actually, I wanted to. The last thing when you mentioned Will Benson, I faced him when he was with the Lynchburg Hillcats, which is the Guardians. Was the high A team when I was there, and the thing for him was a lot of power. If he made contact, that ball was hit to the moon, but he did strike out a lot. Did not hit for a high average, but that's kind of the risk reward with him. And I'm curious with it, but that's a guy that you do not want to let beat you, because if he does and he gets hot, he can win a game for a team. He really can on that end. A couple fun things. First off, I was just realizing, Jeff, your voice, I could listen to you talk all day. I really could.
Thank you.
I mean, really, by saying that, Zach brought it up and he's looking at me like it's his, but I'm thinking smooth jazz, but it's not jazz.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Your voice is magical.
Zach's almost felt like he's in like a hypnosis over there.
After I learned what a PRP shot is earlier, so much has gone down today.
Yeah.